Dude, did you see that movie, The Apprentice, about Trump that came out? I watched a pirated copy of it, so like I still want to watch like a good version whenever it comes out. But it's really fucking good. It's way better than I expected it to be. At first, when I saw the adverts for it, I was like, he's not really acting like Trump. It's not really giving Trump to me. He sort of looks like him, but not really. But then later in the movie, you realize what he's doing, because it's like he starts as a guy who still has like a shred of humanity. He's like this rich kid, basically slumlord. So it's like he's not a likable character out the gate, but he just feels different from what we know Trump to be. And it's because he's kind of this more like scrappy kid. And then throughout the movie, he becomes more like the Trump that we know. And obviously that's mixed up with Roy Cohn and that character, and the actor who played him did an excellent job. Jeremy Strong, I think is his name. So that performance is great. Roy Cohn and their relationship is a very fascinating. It is a little on the nose on some parts, but I think everything about Trump is on the nose. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's all true. But yeah, even a pirated copy or whatever, I guess I shouldn't say that, but I would recommend you watch it, because it's really fucking good. And it gave me some more context to Trump, and I feel like that's part of these feelings of his depravity coming back, because it talks a lot about his first marriage and how ugly shit got there. There's some very shocking scenes in it. Only thing about it that I cannot forgive is that it goes through this whole period of Trump as like a young bachelor and his first marriage, and then leading up to his second marriage, or like it leads up to around when he made The Art of the Deal. And it never mentions Epstein. It mentions like other creepy guys that he was associated with at the time, but it never gets to Epstein, and that's curious to me. And maybe those timelines don't mix, but I'm pretty sure they do. So I don't know why they made that call, because it seems like that would be the perfect scene to have, at least one scene where you see this fucking guy. He's like the most notorious sex criminal ever at this point. So I don't know why you wouldn't do that in that movie. Maybe there's some kind of legal reason, but that was really my only complaint about it. It's a really good movie, and definitely gives some insight into just the, how Trump became what he is. It's like it depicts him as a person who just had all the life, all of the like humanity completely squeezed out of him, pretty much by his own self and by his own greed. But it's well done in terms of the performance, for sure.
Yeah, actually I did see that. The Esquire was playing it, so I didn't steal it. No, I think I saw somewhere the filmmakers were almost encouraging people to steal it without saying that, because it's pretty much blocked from playing in the U.S. Very few theaters were showing it, or showing it for limited screenings. I was lucky that Esquire was showing it. It was the only theater around here, but as you know, the Esquire is pretty dope. But that's mostly, I don't know if you know about the controversy behind the film, other than people just saying, it's full of lies, slandering Donald and stuff like that. But Dan Snyder, I guess he is the former owner of the Washington Commanders. Through his son's company, put like $1.1 million into the production of the movie because he was under the assumption that it was going to be a flattering biopic about Donald Trump. And then when he got his hands on a rough cut, which already hard to watch because there's no music or visual effects or anything, and screened it for his like father or father-in-law or someone, and they pretty much lost their shit because he's popping amphetamines and getting liposuction and rapes Ivana in the movie. But I liked the movie a lot. I thought it was pretty good. I was really impressed with Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong. A lot of the same takeaways as you. I actually did not expect an Epstein thing. I think it would have derailed it, like maybe just a little cameo or pop up, but I didn't think they were going to dive into that, because that's like a whole separate movie, really. But it would have been nice to have some, at least, marking of that relationship, some notation of it in the film.
Oh, I hadn't heard that, but that's amazing. That's like what artists are supposed to do. You're supposed to find the richest guy in town and convince him to give you millions of dollars so you'll make a nice movie about his best friend, and then just make a movie about how he's a fucking rapist psychopath. That's awesome. That makes me like the movie like 20,000 times more. What the fuck? Trump did say something interesting recently that kind of has my eyebrows raised. he said at one of his rallies in the last day or so that he really hopes the market crashes in the next few weeks. So not before Election Day. He hopes the market crashes in the time between Election Day and the certification. So that brings to mind a whole different element of this that I hadn't thought of, which is basically that a big reason that he was able to pull off January 6th and why it went as far as it did, similar to why the Black Lives Matter protests, gained as much traction as they did, is because of the economic state at the time. It's always more rife for unrest when things are looking bad economically. And Trump definitely utilized that. And I mean, even in the case of the Black Lives Matter protests and even probably up to January 6th, a lot of people didn't even have jobs. You know what I mean? So it's like, those are the kind of conditions that predicate something like that happening. So I hadn't even thought of that in terms of this election, that's another thing that I think makes it less likely the whole thing will destabilize, even as much as it did in 2020, though it's still possible. But also, it shows that Trump is thinking about that. And Trump truly is just like, he's just, a completely soulless person. Like if he sees that weakness, if there was some way that Donald Trump could crash the U.S. economy, and because he thought it would make it more likely that he would gain power, he would do it. That's the fucking crazy thing. He would do it. And obviously that's, how much of a conspiracy would you have to pull off in order to do that? It would be pretty nuts, but not impossible. And if the same people that set their mind to all the psyops that happened in 2016 and then the fake elector scheme and everything else that happened in 2020 and 2021, if those people wanted to fabricate some kind of market crash to try to gin up some civil unrest, they might be able to do it. Probably not with a few weeks notice, but I don't know. That's an interesting thing to keep an eye on, I guess, because there's a lot of attention on maintaining the election systems and that sort of thing, but our economy is rife with scams right now. So it feels like if somebody wanted to find some way to worm in there and bring some numbers down as much as they could, there's probably ways to do that. I don't know. I'm an idiot about that shit economically, but there's something very interesting about the fact that Trump was thinking that way. I hadn't heard
him say that about crashing the market, but it doesn't surprise me at all. That is exactly up his alley. And of course, I agree with you that he would 100% do that, crash the market, hurt any number of people for his own self-interest. I mean, that's Donald Trump to a T. Like we were talking about with him trying to fight potential loss results before, at least he's not in the same position of power he was in last time on January 6th. So, that probably holds some of that back. But he still does wield a lot of power in the position he's in now. And I'm sure there's plenty of powerful people that owe him favors or want to do favors or help him get in power because of what that will mean for them. So definitely something to keep an eye on. As far as what you were saying about what is the point of those clips, basically, at this point, it's really not a lot. I don't think either. It's pretty much just for each side to laugh at the other one and share them around and be like, see how right we are about, hating Trump or hating Kamala. To me, I really doubt there are many undecided voters out there, not enough to be a significant number, and swing the election. People know how they feel. I mean, this is the third time in 10 years we've watched Donald Trump run. No one has been covered in the media as much as this man ever. He's the most famous man in the world. It's disgusting, but people know how they feel about him, and I don't see, not only are there not significant undecided voters, I don't really see any clips from either side, whether it's Trump being a jackass or Kamala being a jackass, is going to sway one side. There are a few people I'm sure that could be swayed by some big things like stances on abortion and stuff like that. But it pretty much is what it is. I almost don't see the point of campaigning in this election, or at least in this last leg of the election. Maybe when Biden dropped out and Kamala was the choice, then, there's, people getting to know what her stances on things are and how she's going to run her campaign. I get that, but people are going to try and vote Trump out, or people are going to try and vote Trump in, and that's what it boils down to. And Trump supporters have shown time and time again that, they will do anything for him and bend over backwards and make excuses for him or demonize anyone else for trying to attack him. So, I really don't.
I don't think I've really expressed this to anyone, but man, I cannot say how annoyed I was with the Obamas at the DNC. For me, the Obama's appearance was when I started to become annoyed with the entire thing, and then it only got worse from there. But it was just such a reminder of the type of scolding politics that we have always gotten from them, from Obama, and also from Michelle Obama. And Michelle Obama's speech at the DNC was really the one that made me feel that, because she did her whole spiel about how, we can't have a Goldilocks complex because everything about our candidate isn't just right. And, we got to get out there and vote and blah, blah, blah. And I found that enormously condescending. They're just so good at politics that are really well engineered, really well intentioned, and incredibly condescending. That really is the Obama brand. And that's what the big complaint about them from the right, and I guess from politically unaffiliated people, but mostly the right. I mean, that's what people said about Obama while he was president. And I very much see it now, because as we're seeing the Democratic Party on this steady march to the right, partially facilitated by Obama, no question about it. And they just kind of have the nerve to be listen, just because you don't like everything about this candidate. And on principle, I agree. I mean, I think people should vote for Kamala despite her downsides, because voting is not it's not a self-expression. It's not like me exercising my fandom of this person. It's me trying to, kind of envision what possible futures are for the country and which one is slightly better or slightly worse. I think that the future of the country under Kamala is much better than the future under Trump, but when it comes to what's the future of the Middle East, there truthfully isn't that much difference. I mean, I think it would be worse under Trump, no question, but it's hard to tell somebody who is from there or their family's from there, and it's all just getting bombed to ashes, under Kamala and Biden's dime. And, to tell them that it's it's the lesser of two evils. They don't see it that way. And to be so blind about that, about why that is, and just to make no effort to include that type of voice, which they absolutely did not do at the DNC. It's just, it's a reminder of the type of neocon politics that we got from Obama. And I was very fucking annoyed by that, because Obama did that during his term too, especially once he lost control of the House and the Senate, and he pretty much lost the ability to do much at that point. And I think at that was when his tone shifted to shaming people about not voting, essentially. And it was the same exact tone in 2024. And again, it's I get it. I get why that's the message, but it landed exactly as poorly now as it did back then, if not much worse now. I was like, man, these are supposed to be some of the most likable people in politics. I agree with them on most positions, and yet I'm insanely irritated by hearing them speak.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the Obamas, especially at the DNC, but in general, that's their playbook, that, snootiness. And I didn't see it at first, but by the second term, it was there, the condescension, and it is what it is. I'll take it over Trump, but yeah, it's not good. And yeah, like what you said when you're voting, it's not a self-expression kind of thing. I'm not voting for my exact perfect candidate. Some people might be, but it's just trying to steer the ship in as good of a direction as possible. If you're trying to go home and you got two paths, and one of them's got wolves on it, and the other one's got bees on it. Well, I'm gonna go on the one with bees, I guess. I don't know. It's just a sad state that we're in, that I can't, get excited about a candidate. A candidate I've been excited about in the last 20 years, Bernie Sanders, and even that wasn't that exciting. But I would have taken him over anyone else I've seen, run or be in office, in, I don't know, my entire life, I guess. It's a pretty sad state of affair in American politics these days. But people that can't get behind, they don't like Trump, but can't get behind voting for Kamala, I get to an extent. We have a good friend of ours is not voting for her because she won't stand up for Palestine. And I know a couple other people like that, and I respect it. I agree that that's really shitty. Like what you said, you know, is an America under her watch better than Trump? For sure. Is the Middle East? Probably not. It's probably exactly the same. Maybe it'd be a little worse with Trump. You know, he doesn't exactly have a cool head. All his talk about how Putin wouldn't have invaded the Ukraine if he was in power during that and stuff. I mean, I don't believe for 1 second. You know, he's easy to manipulate, and that's why dictators like him and those kind of people want him in power. He doesn't really have any real favor with them like he thinks he does. And I think we just need to get it out there and make sure he's not in power for the next 4 years. Like, I don't really love Kamala, but like you said, it's not self-expression. Do I support Palestine? Yes. Like, can I reconcile voting for her still, though, because it's keeping him out of power? Yes, certainly. I cannot... Not only would he be horrible for this country for the next 4 years, I just cannot deal with having to see his face every day for the next 4 years. I might, you know, lose my mind, quite literally. And I probably will still, even if he loses, have him in my life way, way more than I want until he is dead. And it's really insane that this guy, this narcissist monster, has become such a powerful figure in history and will be known forever. I just cannot believe it.
Yeah, it was just crossing my mind earlier that, like, I don't know why, but something about the last week or two really has brought back up the feelings of, like, what it's like to have to deal with and think about Trump all the time. Not just him and the things he's doing and saying, but all of his supporters defending him as well. It's like... It's almost like bringing back some, like, PTSD, because there's obviously, you know, you and I are the types that, like, we haven't let ourselves forget how bad Trump was, but it's also, there is, like, you sort of forget because we're not dealing with it as actively anymore. And it is hard to remember all the details of it. It was such a flood, a constant barrage of absurdity and terrifying quotes and just, like, you know, this, like, circus act, especially during COVID and all that. Like, my God, it's crazy that we even got through that. It was a dizzying amount of disinformation all the time. And so it's like, I do think your brain kind of naturally shuts that off. That's, like, pretty traumatic. And it feels like it's bringing that back a little bit, just, like, the constant having to argue about, like, basic reality with people and, like, seeing so clearly that this is an evil person. You know what I mean? Like, an evil, lying person, a person who will say whatever he has to say and, you know, will do the most sick and depraved things if he feels like he can. And it's like, it's so easy to know that about this person and then to argue with people who see him as this righteous figure, or just nothing that he does or says could convince them that he is that person. And so certainly nothing we do or say could convince them that he is that person. And so I guess being this close to the election is really bringing that feeling back. And I hope that other people are feeling that same way. I hope that that same sort of PTSD, I don't know what it is about, I don't think it was the Hinchcliffe thing, but something about how Nazi-like that whole rally was, plus how unhinged Trump has been becoming, as well as the realization that this is a guy who is psycho enough that he 100% would try to crash the economy if he felt like it would destabilize things in his favor. And just remembering what it was like with a person like that in the White House, where you just know that his worst impulses are constantly driving him and that there's nobody there who knows how to rein him in, and that this time it would be worse. And so, yeah, I hope that the same way some of the shocking images of the last week or so, the Epstein thing, that definitely brings back the depravity of Trump for me. And I hope other people are feeling that same way and letting it motivate them, because it truly is the number one thing that I associate with Trump, is just an absolute bottomless pit of a soul that, he would sell us all out, and he has done it a million times. And it's like him being back in power would just be a reaffirmation for him that he has 100% right to do that, and there's nothing that anyone can tell him about what he is or isn't allowed to do. So I don't think, in my heart, I don't think that America is going to hand the presidency back to him. We've all been wrong about that before. I don't see as much momentum behind Trump as there used to be, but if there's one thing that his people do, it's show up in ways that they weren't necessarily expected to. It definitely is bringing back the fear response, and just that resolution of if a guy like that is in power, then people need to speak out about it at every turn, and it sucks that it's not as easy to speak out during a Democratic presidency, or it doesn't feel as easy. There's not as easy as a target. As somebody who spoke a lot about Trump and Trump subsidiaries and the people around him, it's a very easy target if you have a political message you're trying to get out there, and especially if it's opposite of what Trump's political message is, he makes it very easy to target that message. And so it is harder to do that when Democrats are in power, but it's not worth it. You know what I mean? I definitely would rather oppose Kamala than Trump, and that's what the voting decision comes down to for me. So, we'll fucking see. Keeping my fingers crossed over here that it doesn't all come apart at the seams. That's really all we can ask for, I suppose.
Yeah, it's definitely like PTSD. I've been experiencing it recently too, and it was just that exhausting fight every day, having to explain that, to some Trump supporter that's talking to you about something he said, that, well, no, none of that's based in any fact. It's actually the opposite, or he's contradicting what he said here. It's just exhausting. I don't want to have those discussions. I will be grilling them, I guess, when the stuff does come up on, well, why isn't my gas $2 a gallon like you said it would be if he, was president? I'm sure they'll come up with some excuse. The Democrats still in power in some way or other, causing the gas prices, or it's roll off from Biden's administration or something. I don't know. The man's a maniac. His supporters are maniacs. There's no two ways about it. I was thinking about what you said with when he just starts freeballing and doing stuff where he rambles or does the more weird stuff that's obviously not on his teleprompter or a talking point his campaign manager wanted him to bring up or whatever. He does that thing where he kind of just stares off into the middle distance and purses his lips and just starts pontificating and I don't know how anyone can sit through those rallies, but I guess it is what it is with him. If we do get another term with him, I believe in my heart of hearts too that America's not ready to have him be president again, and that Kamala will win. But it'll be a nasty fight from his side, of course, denying that. But if we did get another term with him, presidents traditionally are pretty wild versions of themselves in the second term because they don't have to worry about getting reelected. They pardon more people. They do a lot more unpopular things that, benefit them personally. So I can only imagine what that would be like with Trump. I don't know if I could sit through the next 4 years like this. I would say I'd move to Canada or something like that, but it is actually pretty hard to get Canadian citizenship, and I don't think I can afford to move anywhere else, really, so I guess I'll be stuck here, but I won't be happy about it. Not to give out too personal of information here or anything, but earlier I was watching some videos on an adult site, studying for my anatomy test, of course. Most of these sites, when you click on a video, I know you're unaware of this because you're not in any anatomy classes or anything, but they'll do a commercial for usually an adult product or another adult website or specific company that makes videos. It's like a 30-second or 1-minute commercial, and after like 5 seconds, you can skip past it to the video, like most ads or whatever. But when I clicked on the video this morning, a picture of Trump and JD Vance popped up, ruining the whole experience for me. But they were the pre-roll ad was it said, if Project 2025 goes through, they will ban porn. And I thought that was hilarious that's the ad. And I kind of like it, if it gets people out there against Project 2025, I'm all for it. Go for the, wank vote.
That's fucking hilarious. Honestly, the wank vote is probably the best place to target ads like that than any of the like typical Democratic avenues. It's like that's where you're really gonna find the people just in the drudges of society, you know what I mean? The people just like in the fucking gutter that is like, they're citizens, they can vote, they barely exist, but if you can get them out to vote in favor of porn, then all power to you.
I think it's interesting that they have legalized betting on the election. I'm surprised it wasn't legal before. I know there were some weird places in Vegas or weird websites where you could bet on a lot of different stuff other than sports. But for whatever reason, I haven't looked into it too much, but you couldn't bet on the U.S. presidential election. It was illegal until now. And they're opening a lot of bets on it. I find that interesting. But, I could see it. There's not enough time now, I guess. But that could be a good way to get Trump to actually not be president if you simply got him in a big enough lead. You had Kamala or whoever was running against him do an intentionally poor job so that if you bet against Trump winning, the odds would be heavily in your favor if he did lose, and then have Trump take a dive and pay him out, because he would take a dive for the right amount of money. That's all he cares about, right?
I'm surprised that Trump hasn't offered to drop out of the race for a pardon at this point. I kind of figured that he was going to do. I mean, that does seem like the most sensible thing. He probably just knows that they will never do that, and he's correct about that. But also, I don't even know if that's for sure. I think if Trump offered to drop out of the race and leave politics in exchange for a pardon, Biden might seriously consider that. Maybe he wouldn't, but I think a part of him would, because it's like there is a genuine trade-off there, but it would set the worst possible precedent, and I think Biden is well aware of that, and Kamala would obviously be well aware of that as well. She's even less likely to do it, I think. But if he were to offer that, how could those in power not consider that offer?
That's interesting. Biden offering Trump a pardon if he'd drop out of the race in politics. I can almost see Trump taking that, but I don't think his ego would allow him to. And like you said, it's not going to happen anyway. Biden's not going to let him up. I think Biden would consider it, but at this point, he's not getting out of it unless he wins the election, of course. Then I guess he can pardon himself or whatever. I think that's accurate.
I'm not sure. I think it was kind of up in the air last time about whether he can pardon himself, but he was considering pardoning himself. I think actually at that point he was wondering if he could preemptively pardon. He wanted to give himself a preemptive blanket pardon, and I don't think they figured out any way for him to do that. But yeah, if he went into the presidency again, 100% he's figuring out some way to pardon himself. There's no way he's not doing that. That would probably happen in the first couple days, because now with the Supreme Court and the decisions they've already made, even if it is illegal for him to pardon himself, he can just fucking do it anyway, because the Supreme Court ruled that he had immunity. And we all know that doesn't apply to Biden, but as soon as Trump gets in there and starts pardoning himself and doing whatever the fuck he's going to do, 100% they're going to back him up on everything.
Wait a minute. A preemptive blanket pardon? Is that something he actually said?
I remember there was a lot of chatter about it at the time, because people were debating, can Trump pardon himself? Trump hasn't been charged with any crimes yet. Is he going to try to pardon himself? Is he going to try to preemptively pardon himself? And I definitely know that term of the preemptive blanket pardon was floating around. If there's anything I've learned in these years of the Trump presidency, it's that when you hear about crazy, insane sounding ideas like that somehow are resonating in the media, and they're denying that they ever said it or ever would say it or blah blah blah, almost 100% of it is true. If he genuinely suggested that we should nuke hurricanes, then I would not put it past him that the words preemptive blanket pardon came out of his mouth, and probably was even drafted up at some point.
If you could pardon yourself as president, I imagine Nixon would have just done that and avoided the stepping down and having Johnson pardon him. But I don't know. Even Nixon had more professionalism, more respect for the position of the president, more respect for the system of government than Donald Trump. Like, it's insane how bad Trump is compared to other presidents, that he's made, like, retroactively people like Nixon and W look way better. Still garbage, but way better than they were.
Yeah, truthfully, Nixon probably could have pardoned himself, but there were just so many layers of depravity, I keep using that word, but it's apt, that he would have had to crawl through in order to, like, basically have people around him that were willing to do that. And so it's like, even if Nixon wanted to do that, which he probably considered, he probably wouldn't have made much headway on it, because just the whole institution of the president and Congress and all of it was just stronger at the time. Whereas that, to me, is what characterizes the Trump presidency, is that he showed that, like, the president doesn't actually have to follow any of those rules, because as long as you can, like, force people to do what you want, then you can also, like, try to force the court to side with you on it. And it's something that Trump did pretty effectively while he was in office. So it's like, I think that he, at this point, would be unhinged enough that he would try just about anything. And could they pull it off? No, I do still think there would be some limits to what they could actually pull off, but I think that it went pretty far last time, and I think it would go pretty far again. Like, people freaked out because Nixon fired, like, a few people. You know what I mean? They called it, the Sunday Night Massacre, because Nixon fired, I think like 5 people got fired or resigned or whatever. And Trump, that's it, his entire presidency was like that. And so now everybody who would be in his cabinet this time knows that they have to be absolutely sycophantic to Trump, so that's who he's going to get. And even half of those people are going to get their heads chopped off. So it's like, Trump I think that's how he was able to take things so far too, is just by constantly cycling through people until he got people who were willing to do just about anything.
It's insane. I kind of thought of the president as much more of a figurehead than anything else. But the way Trump has no respect for the system of checks and balances and just bullies people into making things happen, it's impressive, honestly. And it is one of the things that his supporters find appealing about him. But also, if you care about our system of government at all and have any respect for the institution, or just the idea of the 3 houses, the checks and balances, all this being set up so we don't have a dictatorship, it's disgusting and crazy. It's amazing. I honestly keep finding myself at a loss for words with this stuff. Like, I have these ideas and feelings that he stirs up in me, and I find myself, just when I'm talking about his supporters or the things he does or says, just being flabbergasted and just like, it's crazy. It's ridiculous. It's insane. I don't know how often I say that on a daily basis, but since so much of this is recorded, I could probably figure it out. And let me tell you, it's crazy.